Ever notice how stupidity often sounds confident and wisdom stays quiet? We live in a world where volume is mistaken for intelligence and arrogance hides behind fake certainty. People argue not to understand, but to win. They talk louder, not wiser. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone is mistaken, instruct them kindly, if you can. If not, bear with them." Because the Stoics knew this truth, you can't reason with arrogance disguised as knowledge. You can only protect your peace, your clarity, and your time. In this video, we'll explore 8 clear signs of a truly foolish person. How to recognize them, how to avoid becoming like them, and how to handle stupidity with calm mastery. Because fighting fools drains your energy, understanding them sharpens your wisdom. Stay till the end. The last sign might reveal something about you. 1. They speak more than they think. There's a reason the Stoics valued silence as much as courage. Because a fool reveals himself not through what he knows, but through what he cannot stop saying. We've all met that person. The one who fills every pause with noise, who mistakes constant talking for confidence. They don't ask questions, they don't reflect. They speak only to prove they exist. But as Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, once said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." Words are powerful tools, but in the hands of the undisciplined, they become weapons against others and eventually against themselves. A person who talks more than they think isn't just careless with speech. They are careless with perception. They miss what's said between the lines. They confuse noise for knowledge, speed for insight, and volume for intelligence. The fool talks to be heard. The wise talk to understand. And the Stoic? He talks only when silence no longer serves. Because to the Stoic, silence isn't emptiness, it's mastery. It's the moment between impulse and control, where truth gathers its weight before it's spoken. That pause, that sacred gap, is where wisdom lives. Watch how easily people betray themselves when they speak too quickly. They reveal insecurity behind arrogance, fear behind certainty, and ignorance behind confidence. They don't listen because listening means admitting they don't already know. They fill the air with noise to drown out the discomfort of not being the smartest person in the room. But wisdom begins exactly there. In that discomfort, in that humility to say, "Maybe I don't know yet." The fool avoids silence because in silence he would have to face himself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's how the Stoics treated words, as moral acts, not casual noise. They believed speech should serve truth or remain unspoken. Every word is a promise, a reflection of your discipline, your clarity, your self-control. That's why wise people often speak less. They are busy observing, refining, choosing. When a Stoic finally speaks, his words carry weight because they are forged in restraint. Look at our modern world. Everyone has a platform, yet few have purpose. People talk to be seen, not to contribute. They argue not to learn, but to win. Outrage becomes entertainment, and loudness becomes currency. But the Stoic doesn't compete in that arena. He values presence over performance. When others rush to speak, he waits. When they demand reaction, he breathes. He knows silence unsettles the insecure, because silence cannot be argued with. Imagine this. 2 people in a heated argument. One shouts, waves his hands, desperate to prove he's right. The other listens quietly, speaks once, and ends it. Which one looks stronger? Which one has control? That's the difference between noise and power. Control is silent. Strength doesn't shout. A disciplined tongue is sharper than any insult. The Stoic doesn't need to win arguments. He wins himself. In a world that rewards reaction, restraint becomes rebellion. Don't let noise trick you into thinking it means. Don't mistake confidence for clarity. or speech for strength. Speak only when your words add value, not volume. Because wisdom doesn't rush, it resonates. And silence, when chosen deliberately, speaks louder than any speech ever could. Silence is not weakness, it's control. 2, they get offended by truth. A fool doesn't fear lies. He fears the truth that exposes him. The truth has a strange power. It doesn't wound the body, it wounds the ego. Tell a fool something honest, and you'll see how quickly he turns red, how fast his pride rushes to defend itself. He'll attack your tone, your motives, your right to speak, anything to avoid the mirror that truth holds up. Because to admit you're wrong requires strength, and strength is something a fool refuses to build. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone corrects you and shows you your mistake, consider it a gift." The wise see truth as a form of love, a mirror that reveals what we can improve. But to the stupid, truth is an insult. They don't want accuracy, they want approval. They prefer comfort over clarity, flattery over freedom. They'd rather hear a sweet lie than face a hard truth. That's why they surround themselves with echoes. People who never challenge them, only confirm them. Their entire identity is a house of cards built on fragile validation. One gust of truth, and it collapses. You'll see this everywhere. Someone offers honest feedback, not to hurt, but to help. And suddenly the fool grows cold, defensive, angry. "You're being negative," they'll say. Or, "Who are you to judge me?" They twist the truth until it sounds like an attack, just to protect their pride. But the Stoic doesn't play that game. He doesn't waste energy convincing those who refuse to see. He lets truth stand on its own, because the truth doesn't need defenders. It only needs time. Seneca warned, "No man heals by denying his wound." The fool covers his pain with pride, hoping no one notices. The wise face it, clean it, and grow stronger. It's the same with truth. The longer you avoid it, the deeper the rot becomes. But when you face it, you grow beyond it. To the Stoic, truth is not a weapon, it's medicine. And though it stings at first, it saves you in the end. If you speak truth and they get angry, remember, it's not you they're fighting, it's reality. Let them rage, let them twist. Don't argue, you have nothing to prove. Remain calm, remain grounded, and let their reaction reveal what they are. The wise don't trade peace for the illusion of winning. They don't chase being right. They aim to be free. In a world that worships comfort, truth becomes rebellion. To speak honestly without cruelty, to listen without defense, to face correction without shame. That is the discipline of the Stoic. You can't control whether people accept the truth, but you can control whether you stay composed when they reject it. And that's real power. Calm in the face of chaos, clarity in the storm of emotion. Truth hurts the ego, not the wise. 3. They blame everyone, but themselves. Nothing keeps a man weak longer than the habit of blaming others. The fool always has a reason, always has a villain, always has someone else to point at. It's never his fault. It's his parents, his boss, the government, the system, the universe. He believes life is conspiring against him, when in truth, it's his own refusal to take responsibility that keeps him trapped. The Stoics saw this centuries ago. They taught that the moment you start blaming, you hand over your power. Because the one you blame becomes the one who controls you. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That's the core of Stoicism. Radical ownership. It doesn't mean pretending every misfortune is your fault. It means claiming your response as your domain. The fool wastes energy wishing the world were fair. The Stoic accepts the world as it is and masters his choices within it. Responsibility is freedom because it's the only thing you truly own. You can see this pattern everywhere. Someone fails at something and instantly blames the conditions. The timing was wrong. People don't support me. I never got the chance. But underneath those excuses is fear. Fear of facing their own weakness. It's easier to hate the world than to fix yourself. That's why fools stay in the same place for years. They've built their own prison and decorated it with reasons. The Stoic doesn't waste breath on blame. He studies his failures like a scientist studies a specimen. Without shame, without denial, only curiosity. What did I do? What can I learn? What can I do differently? That mindset transforms pain into progress. Every mistake becomes raw material for mastery. Seneca said, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." The fool is dragged through life, kicking and screaming, blaming everything as he goes. The Stoic walks forward willingly, even through hardship, because he understands this truth. What you accept, you can control. What you resist controls you. When you meet someone who always blames others, stay calm. Don't argue. Don't try to rescue them from their own story. They don't want solutions. They want sympathy. You can't wake someone who's pretending to sleep. Let them talk. Let them project and walk away lighter. Because their storm is not your responsibility. The Stoic knows that peace begins where blame ends. And if you catch yourself falling into that trap, pause. Don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask, "What can I do with this?" That single question turns a setback into strength. The world won't always be fair. People will lie, betray, and disappoint. But that's their domain, not yours. Your domain is how you rise, how you endure, how you keep your composure when chaos knocks. Blame is easy. Growth is hard. One keeps you innocent, the other makes you powerful. Choose power. Take responsibility. Not because you're guilty, but because you're capable. The fool finds excuses, the Stoic finds actions, and that difference marks the line between suffering and strength. Blame weakens, responsibility rebuilds. For they refuse to listen or learn. Nothing exposes ignorance faster than arrogance. The fool believes he already knows everything worth knowing. He listens only to respond, not to understand. Every conversation becomes a competition, every correction a personal attack. He would rather defend his mistakes than evolve beyond them. The tragedy is that he mistakes pride for power, when in reality, pride is the lock that keeps wisdom out. Seneca once wrote, "While we teach, we learn." The Stoics knew that the wisest minds are the most open ones. True intelligence isn't rigid, it's flexible. It bends, it absorbs, it adapts. The fool, however, builds walls out of certainty. He hears advice and calls it criticism. He hears truth and calls it disrespect. The more you try to guide him, the more he resists, clinging to the illusion of being right. Because in his world, to learn means to admit imperfection, and his ego cannot survive that. You've probably met people like this. The co-worker who dismisses every idea but his own, the friend who asks for help but argues with every answer. You can't reach them, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack humility. And humility is the soil where all learning grows. Without it, every truth slides off the surface of the mind like rain on stone. The fool stays dry, untouched, unchanged, while the wise soak up every drop. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong, I'll gladly change. For it is truth I seek, not pride." That's the Stoic way, the courage to be corrected. Wisdom doesn't come from always being right. It comes from being willing to adjust when you're wrong. The fool clings to his opinions as if they define his worth. The Stoic holds his opinions loosely, knowing that truth is discovered, not declared. Look at how modern arrogance works. People confuse knowledge with scrolling, experience with opinions, and attention with insight. They believe reading headlines makes them experts, and disagreement makes them enemies. But the Stoic doesn't argue to win. He listens to understand. He knows that silence is the space where understanding grows, and questions are the path that leads to it. There's power in saying, "I don't know." Those 3 words open the door to everything real. They disarm the ego and invite wisdom to enter. The fool fears those words. He thinks they make him small. The wise embrace them. They know it's how they become great. Every master was once a beginner who refused to fake certainty. So when you encounter someone who refuses to listen or learn, don't try to break their wall. It's made of pride, not logic. Speak calmly. Offer truth once. Then step back and let time teach them what their ego won't. People who cannot listen eventually learn through consequence, and the consequence is the teacher who never fails. The Stoic stays humble because he knows that the mind, like a sword, dulls when unused. He sharpens it daily through observation, through questions, through silence. He doesn't fear being wrong, he fears being unchanged. The fool resists correction and remains the same. The wise seek correction and evolve. And the Stoic? He listens more than he speaks, learns more than he defends, and grows every time he's proven wrong. The stupid reject correction, the wise crave it. 5. They chase. Attention, not improvement. There's a strange sickness in our age. People no longer want to be good, they just want to be seen as good. They chase the spotlight as if validation could fill the void where self-respect should be. The fool measures his worth by applause, by likes, by who's watching. His effort is not to build, but to impress. He performs his life like a show, always waiting for the next round of approval. But the Stoics knew that seeking attention is the surest way to lose yourself, because the more you need to be seen, the less clearly you can see. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The approval of others gains you nothing." He ruled an empire, yet understood that reputation is a fragile shadow. It moves with the light, not with the truth. The Stoic doesn't live to be admired. He lives to be aligned with his values. He finds strength in doing what's right, even when no one is watching. The fool, on the other hand, acts only when there's an audience. Strip away the eyes of others, and he loses his motivation. His life collapses the moment it isn't being witnessed. Attention is addictive because it mimics love. But love strengthens. Attention drains. The fool confuses them and keeps returning for another hit. Another post, another compliment, another empty nod. He'll shapeshift to fit the crowd, perform virtue for praise, even lie to keep admiration. And each act erodes his soul a little more. The Stoic sees through the illusion. He knows that external praise is like smoke. It rises quickly, then disappears. You can't build peace on smoke. Look at the world around you. Every opinion becomes a performance, every success an announcement. People post progress instead of making it. They chase the image of wisdom instead of the practice of it. They want to be followed, not improved. But Stoicism teaches that you either build character quietly or destroy it loudly. The work that truly transforms you happens when no one's clapping. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more from imagination than from reality." The fool suffers from the imagination of fame. He pictures himself admired, envied, adored. But it's all a fantasy. Real growth doesn't need witnesses. It needs discipline, consistency, and silence. The Stoic wakes up and asks, "What can I make better today?" Not, "Who will notice me today?" His reward is progress, not praise. When you no longer crave recognition, you become unstoppable. Because no one can manipulate a man who doesn't need applause. Criticism no longer shakes you. Approval no longer feeds you. You become grounded in something deeper, your own integrity. That's the kind of strength that can't be bought, borrowed, or performed. So stop chasing eyes that will look away tomorrow. Build something real, Do one quiet act of excellence every day that no one sees. Let your work speak when you don't. Because the Stoic doesn't need to prove who he is. He shows it silently, through action. Fools seek applause. The wise seek progress. 6. They repeat mistakes and call it experience. The fool loves to say, "I've been through this before," as if repetition were wisdom. But living the same mistake twice isn't experience. It's stubbornness dressed as maturity. A fool doesn't learn, he survives. He crashes into the same walls, blames the same people, feels the same pain, yet convinces himself he's wiser because of it. But wisdom isn't measured by how much you've suffered. It's measured by how much you've changed because of that suffering. Seneca once said, "To err is human, but to persist in error is foolish." Every failure contains a lesson, but the fool refuses to look inside it. He wraps his mistakes in excuses, saying, "That's just who I am," or "I guess this is my luck." The Stoic, however, looks at his mistakes as mirrors. He studies them, not to punish himself, but to understand himself, because every wrong step, if examined, becomes a map toward a better path. Think about how many people repeat the same cycle in relationships, in work, in habits, always choosing comfort over clarity, pride over progress. They change scenery, but not self. They change partners, jobs, routines, yet meet the same problem everywhere they go, themselves. The fool runs in circles, confusing motion for growth. The Stoic walks in a straight line because he reflects, adjusts, and continues. The truth is, the universe will keep teaching you the same lesson until you finally learn it. Life doesn't punish, it repeats. What feels like bad luck is often unfinished learning. A fool sees every hardship as misfortune. A Stoic sees it as a curriculum. The difference is humility. The willingness to say, "I caused this," or "I can change this." That's how pain becomes power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Mistakes are not detours. They're the main road. But the fool turns around every time he stumbles. He refuses to walk through discomfort, so he never arrives anywhere new. To him, pain is proof of failure. To the Stoic, pain is proof of training. If you find yourself facing the same disappointment again and again, pause. Ask not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What am I still refusing to learn?" That single question can end years of repetition. Because the moment you extract the lesson, the pattern dies. The fool repeats until life breaks him. The Stoic learns until wisdom remakes him. In the modern world, people glorify resilience. "I've been through so much and I'm still standing." But Stoicism asks, have you been through so much and started changing? Survival isn't strength if it leaves you the same. The goal isn't to stand tall in the storm, it's to walk out wiser than you entered. Stop calling repetition experience. Experience without reflection is just endurance. Learn, adapt, refine. Every mistake can either repeat your past or reshape your future. The choice is yours. Mistakes teach only when you listen. 7. They confuse confidence with competence. The fool mistakes volume for strength and certainty for skill. He believes that to sound sure is the same as to be right. The louder he speaks, the more convinced he becomes. Confidence alone can be intoxicating. It makes you feel powerful even when you're completely lost. But the Stoics warned that false confidence is just ignorance in a costume. A person who has never doubted himself has never examined himself. Epictetus said, "A man can't learn what he thinks he already knows." The fool clings to his certainty as if it were armor, but it's actually a cage. Every time he says, "I know," he closes the door on growth. He doesn't question. He asserts. He doesn't test. He declares. He's not looking for truth. He's looking for validation, and that's why fools fall hardest. Because arrogance has no foundation. The higher their confidence climbs, the further their competence sinks. You see this everywhere, in the workplace, in politics, online. People speak with absolute conviction about things they barely understand. They quote headlines as if they were scholars, shout opinions as if they were facts. The modern world rewards confidence more than competence, but the Stoic doesn't confuse the two. He knows that real knowledge makes a person humble, not loud. Because the more you truly understand something, the more aware you become of how much you don't know. The fool fears uncertainty. He thinks admitting, "I'm not sure," will make him weak. The Stoic embraces it, knowing that doubt is the birthplace of wisdom. True confidence is quiet, not because it's unsure, but because it has nothing to prove. A skilled craftsman doesn't boast about his tools. He lets his work speak. The wise don't announce their strength. They reveal it through precision, through calm, through results. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Receive without arrogance and let go without attachment." The Stoic doesn't chase the feeling of being superior. He chases truth. He'd rather be corrected than be comfortable. He'd rather learn something new than win an argument. The fool, on the other hand, confuses ego with identity. To challenge his ideas is to threaten his sense of self. And so, he defends his ignorance like a warrior guards a throne made of sand. Confidence without skill is a fragile illusion. It works until the world asks for proof. And when it does, the fool has nothing left but excuses. The Stoic prepares for that moment. He builds quietly, practices endlessly, questions constantly. His confidence is earned, not performed. That's why it lasts. In a noisy world where everyone is desperate to appear certain, humility becomes a rare strength. Be willing to say, "Yeah, I don't know." Be curious enough to find out. Let competence, not confidence, be your reputation. Because the Stoic doesn't need to look right. He needs to be right. Confidence without reason is arrogance. 8. They think loud opinions mean strength. The fool believes that shouting his thoughts makes them true. He mistakes aggression for confidence, volume for conviction, and dominance for power. He argues not to find clarity, but to assert control. Every disagreement becomes a battle, every conversation a stage. Yet the louder he speaks, the less anyone truly listens. Because strength that depends on noise isn't strength at all. It's insecurity trying to look important. Seneca once said, "He who angers you conquers you." The fool doesn't understand this. He believes that reacting fast means winning, that raising his voice means he's in charge. But the Stoics taught the opposite, that self-control is the highest form of power. To remain calm when others lose themselves, to stay composed when provoked, is the mark of mastery. Anger burns fast and leaves ashes. Calm endures. We see this everywhere today. On social media, in politics, in daily life, people shouting past each other, mistaking outrage for courage. But outrage isn't strength. It's surrender. It's handing your peace to whoever can trigger you next. The fool lives like a puppet of his own emotions, pulled by every offense, every insult, every opinion that contradicts his own. The Stoic cuts the strings. He knows silence unsettles the insecure more than any argument ever could. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." That's how the Stoic responds, not by matching volume, but by raising standards. When the fool screams, the Stoic breathes. When the fool demands to be heard, the Stoic listens. When the fool seeks to win, the Stoic seeks to understand. True strength doesn't need to be announced. It's visible in composure, restraint, and unshakable